helped start the paramedic program there, various other programs, the bike team, the honor guard, the you name it, he was a part of it. And then with the admin side of, some of the newer stations, you just saw Station 6 in North Little Rock just get open. He was the leader of that, and just recently broke ground in Station 8, which will be in Burns Park, where they'll relocate Engine 8 and Battalion 8. So it absolutely broke his heart to have to step away from that. But I'm sure we'll keep in contact with him. Not only that, but it has a very successful career in the Army Reserves. He currently serves as the Command Sergeant Major of the 333rd Medical Brigade. If you don't know anything about the military, that is the highest rank he can go in the enlisted side. The only way he can go any higher is to join us on the dark side of the officer corps. I don't think that's going to happen, because usually by that time they're too salty at officers. So he's kind of stuck where he is and doesn't want to come over. So we're excited to have him, though. I'm glad to have someone that's willing to lean forward and really just take us to the next level. Before I give him the mic, and he's not scared of your questions, I assure you. He's fielded several this last week from us and from the city council. I wanted to say thank you to you, not only being kind of off the record involved with you guys for the past 18 years as a fireman, but the past 7 months I've learned a lot. Not only, you're talking budgets and POs and how to actually run a department, but then the civil service side of learning laws and rules and regulations and making sure we're doing things right. But I see the work that you guys are putting in, and I appreciate the questions. I've warned him, y'all ask questions, but they're always good to kind of like check me and go, yeah, I probably need to think through that. But then when it was time to pull the trigger on a couple of things, me and Chief Pickard stand up here and put our heart on the line, and y'all see that we're trying to do what's best for our people, and we appreciate you cleaning up the rules and the regulations tonight, so that we can keep moving forward and keep doing the better thing for our people. And so for that, I thank you for your time to sit on this commission, because I know it's not easy to give up a night, and usually more than that as you're reading through stuff. So with that, I thank you, and I'm going to let Chief take the mic so y'all can ask him questions.
Before you step down,
yes,
I
sir.
want to thank you for the job you did.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
I've told you this before, I was an interim director for 13 months, so I've got a lot of appreciation for the challenge that is not only doing the job, but then knowing down the road you got to mesh back into the department.
That's right, sir.
And so I totally understand, and I certainly thank you for stepping up the way you have.
I appreciate it. Being the interim was probably one of the toughest jobs ever, because you're right. You got to walk that fine line of keeping the department going forward, but not get so far off course when he comes in, he hates you, and the guys hate you because you made up all these rules and regulations. So I truly do appreciate y'all's help in helping me sort through some of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Chief, with a name like Bo Buford, you've got to be a Southern boy, correct?
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, I have that conversation with my mother a lot. Why did you name me that? It was difficult growing up. Yes, sir. I would also like to publicly thank Chief Eaton for doing the dual hat. He was in a unique position, because I was trying to finish up in North Little Rock and doing 10 different things, and then randomly, out of the blue, think of a Mall Mill question, and I'd text him over there, and then he would try to give me an answer and everything else, and I'm sure he wasn't prepared to do all those things, and then, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? So not only was he doing the two jobs, he was also trying to answer my questions as well. So a very tremendous job doing both roles. So I would like to publicly thank him as well. As well as I would like to also thank the mayor, because I don't take it lightly that I've been entrusted in this position. I did spend 29 years over in North Little Rock, and they were very good years, and I love the people. And I would not have moved from there if it was not a good opportunity, and if it was not a good community, and if it was not the right fit for me. It had to be the right fit for me to even consider it. So I would also like to thank the mayor, and I want to know that I do not take it lightly to be entrusted in this position. So.
Well, like I told you the other night, I think you'll find a lot to like in the department. You're going to find a lot to like in the community. You've got good public support for both police and fire.
Yes, sir.
welcome aboard.
Yes,
Anybody
sir.
have some questions?
He's been interviewed enough.
Yeah.
Give a man a break.
I will be around, and by all means, relationships are important, and if you have any questions, by all means, let me know, and I'll be happy to answer anything you'd like.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Nice to meet
Welcome
you.
to Mon Mel. Madam HR Director.
I was just going to give a quick update. We had a civil service exam for entry police last Saturday. We had 25 candidates total. Of the 25 candidates, 5 withdrew before the examination. We ended up testing 8. Of those 8, 4 passed. And of the 4 that passed, 1 is newly certified, so that's always helpful when they come to us than having already been through the academy. Right now we have 2 vacancies in the police department, and we have 1 new firefighter who will start working with us on August the 27th.
Where will that leave us on fire? Fully
We
staffed?
should be fully staffed, right,
Fully
chiefs?
staffed?
Fully staffed with,
As of last week, yes, ma'am.
excellent.
Thank you. All right, we have been discussing for a while how best to go about reviewing our rules and regulations, and I offered y'all a couple of alternatives, and y'all chose to do it in this particular format, which is fine. You know, as I looked through this, I realized that since Madam HR Director has come aboard, that we've changed a number of things already. So, does everybody I'm going to start with your suggestions, and we'll work from there. Does everybody have a copy of what HR sent us with their comments?
Yes.
Okay. We're just going to start with that, and then we'll go from there. There are 5 Madam City Attorney, we're not approving these tonight. We haven't advertised or anything. We're basically referring them for review.
So tonight is just to go through these comments and changes, as I understand it, that was the plan, or to discuss them as a whole, and if everyone is in agreement that we want to make these changes, then I will prepare it in the format that we always do for an amendment, with all of the, the language that we put in there, and then we'll advertise it, and then actually before we advertise it, y'all will look at my draft with the rule changes, approve that, and we'll advertise it and come back. So it's a process, as y'all know.
If I want to recommend that we look at a certain thing, does that have to be in the form of a motion, or do we just need to go through and discuss it?
So if there is a particular change that you do want made, you would need to have a motion for the board to direct me to prepare
Okay, gotcha.
formal amendment.
But not to just discuss it.
No, you can just discuss this. I mean, this is just a time to look through and decide whether the changes are, anybody anticipates any problems with them or anything like that.
If we go through this process and we get to the end of it, can we blanket say we want you to prepare this?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Okay, I mean, we don't have to do item by item by item
Really,
necessarily.
there aren't a whole lot that are super controversial.
I
You
didn't
could
see
also
any either.
accept them as a whole with the exception of, one particular thing if you didn't want to do that.
Okay. Everybody turn to page 5. That's where we start.
And in talking to Chief Pickard, I think we would like to put a little bit of an amendment here for the examination age. And Chief Buford, we might do it also for the examination age. So both CLEST and I believe the National Fire Protection, they say that you need to be 21 by the time you are employed as a police officer or a firefighter. However, for the purposes of going to academy, you can be 20 years of age. So I would like to work on some verbiage that says to that effect so that we can start testing at under 21, but by the time they finish their respective academy, they have to be 21. Yes.
I think that's a thumbs
So
up.
they do have to be employed, okay, so to go to academy, and I may be wrong, but to go to academy, they have to be employed by the police department or the fire department?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Well, we recently had that situation arise. We had one test that was 20, and we hired them as a police cadet. And then when they turned 21 in the academy, then we bumped them into police officer once they graduated the academy. That way they were employed with us, had the benefits, and were supported, because you cannot attend the academy, at least the police academy, without the support of the city or being sponsored by the city.
And other departments say you must be 20 and a half in order to test, to take the written part of the exam. And I believe the spirit of that is by the time they get through the whole process, because they're not quite as quick as we are, they will be 21 by the time they go to academy. So I believe that's the spirit of it, being 21 and a half at the time of the written examination. So I just like to have some leeway in there.
So comment on your comment here, your written exam. Your first.
Right. So saying that they're going to arrive at the age of 21 years of age as the date of the written exam, not the offer of employment. But I would like to further amend that after speaking with Chief Pickard, that we might say who have arrived at the age of 20 and a half or 20 and 3/4, not to split hairs, as of the date of the written examination.
Okay, you want to work on that one a little more?
Oh, absolutely.
20
Yes,
years,
sir.
6
Thank you.
months?
Yeah, maybe.
Should there be mention of fire somewhere in that paragraph? It just mentions police.
Well, anyone for police or fire, they have to be 21.
Just says police.
And for each applicant of the Maumelle Police Department shall meet the minimum requirements established for certification by the Arkansas Commission on Law Enforcement Standards and Training. Unfortunately, fire doesn't have anything similar to CLES, so that part is exclusive to the police department.
Are you saying, John, each applicant for either the Maumelle or police or fire department?
Correct. Because when
Okay.
it just specifically mentions the police department, it leaves out fire completely, so it's subject to interpretation. It needs to be spelled out.
Or even a separate paragraph just
Yeah.
for fire.
Yeah.
I'm making some notes here. So if it said, each applicant for either the Maumelle Police Department or Maumelle Fire Department shall be a citizen of the United States who has arrived at the age of 20 years and 6 months as of the date of the written exam?
Correct.
Written
Mhm.
exam.
Okay. And then I think it would probably be less confusing to put a period there.
Yep, I agree.
And then say.
Start a new sentence.
Start a new sentence. Each applicant for the Maumelle Police Department shall meet the minimum requirements established for CLEs.
Yep.
I think that gets it right
So
there.
people that are already certified that apply, they take the written exam. Okay.
All right. Everybody good with that so far? All right, we're going to drop down to the next one. Notice of written exam.
Yeah, a notice of written examination, that's just for clarity, because I get a lot of people calling and saying, well, what exam is that? Is it the written exam? Is it the physical ability exam? We use exam or examination very loosely. So I just like a little bit more clarification there, and I would like for that to read 10 calendar days in advance. And again, that's just for clarity.
Now, the glossary in the back specifies that days, when mentioned in this document, is calendar days.
Let's go ahead and put it in
You
there.
want to add and just,
And I've looked at that, it's mentioned 5 times, changing to calendar days.
it's on page 24.
I think we can all agree that that's a simple enough change that we can cover all 5 of those with a yes.
And can I ask a question? Is there were requirement to have it put in a newspaper with a bona fide circulation, is that statute? And is that kind of out of date anymore? Because I don't know many people that live in the Democrat Gazette.
Still a law.
It's a statute, so that would,
And that's the notice of exam. This is not like the job posting.
I know, but
Yeah, it is. It's in 1451-301. They have not
Okay.
changed that.
because you probably do more of your, recruitment on your website locally, some of the other job posting sites.
Yeah, I know like the league has looked at and are looking at in the future, trying to get some amendments to some of these statutes
true.
made on those advertising requirements, but it's still there.
Yeah, okay, that's just my question.
Well, along those lines, Madam HR Director has told me more than once that she's gonna get us into the 21st century before we get to the 22nd century.
Yay.
And her very next thing just references how we communicate now versus when these original rules were written.
Right, that's it, correct. So right now, we have an applicant tracking system that will actually talk to by way of either a text message or an email directly to the candidate. So I would like to write in that we can use email or text messages through the city's applicant tracking system as a way of notifying candidates of their, several different things, for their placement in the exam list, any kind of communication that we have, if we have to, reschedule a physical ability test, anything like that.
I have no problem with that. Does
No,
anyone?
that's great.
And then step 4.
Go over to page 7. Oh, my God, I got my reading glasses out. Now, I noticed when I printed this, if I could print it to get your comments over here, it made the font really small.
It really does. I know, I hate it.
All right,
Can we go back to page 6?
there's nothing on page 6.
There is for me.
Yeah,
There is, huh? What is it?
Well, in the first sentence, without such authorization of other satisfactory evidence of the acceptance of, I'd say the application, not his or her application, and a driver's license or ID may be required, I'd say is required,
or shall be required.
yeah.
I think that's just for the admission to the exam, not for,
So is required, or shall be required.
Yeah.
because someone would be able to use their military ID to identify themselves to take the written exam or the physical ability exam. So that is what that's for.
Sure, but
you do
maybe
ID everyone?
We do.
Okay,
Okay.
then I see, so you're saying
It
it would
is
be
required.
shall,
Yeah.
driver's license or other identification shall be
Is,
required for admission
yeah.
to an examination.
Yeah.
Rather than may be required.
Okay, yeah, that's clarification. Mhm.
Was that the only comment on that page? I don't have anything.
I got it.
I had one on the previous paragraph, question, about the written examination dates. It says HR is authorized to advertise and hold entrance testing during the month of October each year. Why do we limit it to October? Because haven't we done it in other months?
So October is just like the automatic time, and then as needed, the commission approves
We can
additional
approve
days.
So it says somewhere else that you can do it at other times.
Written exams be held once a year, should it say at least once a
And more
year?
often as
Yeah.
necessary.
So at least once a year,
Yeah, okay.
not just once a year.
Yeah.
Well, I
That
guess
was
it
confusing.
wouldn't be, she wouldn't do it, it says and more often as necessary, if necessary. If we were fully staffed in October, I guess we'd still need a new list, so we would.
Yeah.
Still need a list.
Yeah, at least once
Yeah.
a year, okay.
Fully staffed is fleeting.
What'd you say?
Fully staffed is fleeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a moving target.
Mr. Fire Chief, you may not be aware of this, coming from North Little Rock, but cities of 25,000 or less send the chiefs 3 names. And you probably got more than that. I know they get more than that in Little Rock. Yes, sir.
We get 5.
They get 5.
We did, and then the consent decree was finally done away with, and now it's 3.
Is it 3? Okay.
As of January 2021.
Do we get a bump when we get more people? Like for, when we're over 20,000, is that, cause I know there are some different rules that apply.
I'm not exactly sure about that, but it did go from 5 to 3 because of, it was 5 because of the consent decree, and it had been that way for 30 years, probably. Then it went back to 3.
My next door neighbor is now the HR director in Little Rock. And she was, of course, she had to move over there when she got the job, but, she and I got in, I won't call it an argument, but a discussion, because she kept telling me, no, it's 5, y'all are doing it wrong. Well, no, at that time, we were still doing it right for our population.
Well, and they were also under the consent decree, and they may still be under the consent decree, so it might be 5 for them still.
Well, it's 3 here, just if you didn't know that.
October 19th, that's.
Anything else on
It is,
page
okay.
6 that I'm not
Go back
seeing?
to
So, just to clarify, I'm
Okay.
gonna modify it to say the Department of Human Resources shall advertise and hold entrance testing during the month of October of each year and more often if necessary. Do y'all want to add there and approved by the commission?
Yes.
Okay.
On page 6, second paragraph in the middle. Upon the approval of Civil Service Commission, applicants may be awarded additional points. Aren't they awarded additional points? I mean, they are awarded the points.
There
Where are
there are qualifications on that.
Yeah,
That's about the middle of that.
do we need to talk about the scoring system or what points are added or anything at all? It just seems
We decide,
kind of nebulous.
the way we wrote it, we decide at the beginning of the recruitment what points we're going to add for that particular recruitment
You have to do it before.
before the job posting.
And I remember we talked about it
Yeah.
before.
You have to do each one?
We go through for each individual, and it's just police only, because right now we only have the extra points for police. But we go through, whenever we're doing the first initial job requisition, the job posting, that's when we discuss with, police department whether or not they want to award extra points, and before it's made public,
Okay,
that's when we decide.
okay.
We can't go back, we can never go back
Right,
anytime,
can't go
we
back.
can't ever go back, I always have to do it beforehand.
I did want to ask about that. That is only for police? For the extra points?
Let us reread, because I don't remember if we,
Real tiny print, it'll take us a second.
Because of the,
I don't, did we,
I mean, it says certification as a firefighter in there.
I
So I
thought it
would
was
think
for
it would
both.
apply to both.
Yeah, I thought we did for both.
I've slept since breakfast.
the way I read it was, or interpreted it was you could for fire, paramedic, and for some of the other certifications.
Yeah, it's
Read
both.
further
It's
down
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in there.
Because,
It's in
With,
there.
okay,
college degree in fire science or something
yes,
like
sir.
that.
If that is possible, definitely want to keep that, because that's a very, instead, if you have somebody that's already qualified, you don't have to send them to the academy, that's
Yeah.
a big thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
For sure.
Big plus.
And if you can, if the veterans points too, if it's for one, like to have it for both, if possible.
And, just as we were saying, that's something that you decide ahead of every test and advertise, so obviously you're not gonna include some of the same ones that
Right, could be a
police
different.
would,
Sure.
but certification as a
criteria.
firefighter, EMT, that kind of thing, you're gonna just probably
Yeah.
routinely include.
Yes, yes, ma'am, yes.
I read that as if we included both the possibility for police and fire.
I don't know why we would have not done that,
I don't either.
That's what
but I'd have to go back
I
and
think that
read
was
the,
I'm reading it, firefighter, emergency medical technician, paramedic.
Yeah, it's there.
I mean, you could clarify it in that next to last sentence by saying that is approved by the fire and police department chief. It just says department chief, but that would make it clear.
That would be third sentence up from the bottom.
Okay, is approved by department chief and accredited institution responsible.
I think she's
So
saying,
that part,
make it fire or police chief.
well,
Yeah, fire or.
it is approved by the department chief would apply to either one.
It does to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would, and that's actually just talking about the degree, which is just one category, of, just one item that can be used for extra credit. Okay, so this, as I recall, and I'm reading through it, this criteria, it says upon the approval of the Civil Service Commission, applicants may be awarded additional points toward their overall score for job-related experience and qualifications. And I don't know if that's exactly how we're doing it right now, but I think what was anticipated is that it would be when there's a test and that we're going to announce if the commission would state, or, would consider for this test for police, we're gonna give up to 10 extra points for any of these 5 things, whatever their certification, veteran status, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the reason we wanted some flexibility with that was that either of you at a particular time may be valuing some form of expertise more than others. So it's not, we did not put a numerical score saying if you have this, you get X number of points. That is determined between y'all and HR with our approval before the testing ever starts. So you can custom and tailor a little bit. It may or may not help you, but at least you can try.
You don't think the inconsistency is gonna come back and haunt us?
I think as long as it's applied uniformly to everyone who tests during that test.
Right.
And you say, okay, we need right now, we really need certified people because we're desperate and we don't have enough people on the street.
It's
We can't wait.
situational.
You may wanna give more points for that than you would at a time when you're just building your list because you're fully staffed.
I can see the distinction. I think as long as we do it the same way for the entire group
Right.
that are testing, I think we're fine. Yes, sir.
And to that point, that was why this came about in the first place, is we were down in what I would have considered almost emergency levels of officers. We were down 7 to 8. So we were really looking for certified officers and giving them the points to get them in and get them up, so we could get the ranks refilled faster. So.
Oh, I agree with it. I was just thinking, instead of saying may, I think you do it every time.
Well, you only have 10 points to play with, right?
Right.
So if you do the same thing every time and you say a degree in
Yeah.
criminal justice is always worth 2 points,
Yeah.
and veteran status is always worth 4 points, and something else is always worth this many points, that you're kind of limiting yourself on that certification. As a law enforcement officer, you're gonna say, there's only so many points that you have left to give to it, as opposed to in a particular test, we may want to
Yeah.
give 5 points to being a certified law
Then
enforcement.
somebody has to make a decision on who to select, but I don't want somebody to come back the next year and be scored differently than they had been scored the year before when they didn't make it.
Well, I think as long as you're doing it for the situation, if you're down and you need, a lot of officers, then that's the reason why, you wanna go for the certification and you can document that. If you're doing it because you wanna hire Joe, and try to eliminate everybody else, then you can get in trouble. But as long as we have the justification for why you're doing it.
And it has to be approved by the commission.
Right, approved
So-
by the commission, we can ask them those questions, why you think these points are necessary? And who are you trying to recruit?
I think it's okay the way it is, as long as we treat each group of applicants the same way. And,
And that's what's specifically spelled out in statute, that, that it is objective, whatever you decide your methodology is gonna be, that it's an objective test.
And I like the flexibility of deciding this attribute is worth this many points this time because we really need it.
Right.
In a hurry.
Yeah.
I remember you were in pretty dire straits there at one point.
And you may need certified paramedics during one time, and that might call for extra points where you might not the next time.
Is there anything else on that page I'm not seeing? Yes, sir.
I did want to point out that Army regulations did change on the 214 refred, so it doesn't say dishonorable anymore, it says other than honorable conditions. So you'll never get anybody that has one that says dishonorable. The correct verbiage is other than honorable conditions.
Do you know where we are here?
It's in the
Not
middle.
classified as dishonorable nor bad conduct certification. Oh, wait.
The veteran status with the discharge that
Veteran
is neither
status,
classified as dishonorable, it's other than honorable conditions now.
Okay.
You can make that change.
Okay, veteran status with a discharge that is,
Other than honorable.
That is neither classified as dishonorable.
okay,
That is classified as other than honorable.
that is not classified as other than honorable?
That is neither classified as other than honorable. It's just, there is no more dishonorable. It's just other than honorable conditions.
Is neither classified as other than honorable or bad conduct?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Is
Anything else on page 6?
No.
Nope.
That was the one page, I didn't have any comments showing up, I think we've got more on it so far than any of them. Page 7, let's see. This is simply a referral to the way we communicate now.
correct, yeah.
I have no problem changing any of that. That first one, we just approved the very same thing in
Right.
another section.
We'll call this our 21st century,
21st
Edit.
century movement.
our 21st century edit.
Should make the same thing in that last paragraph too, where it says written notice. Applicants selected for appointment shall be given written notice. Should we change that via email, text, or whatever? And also the 10 days, we gotta add calendar. It's mentioned twice in that paragraph, just as an aside, just if you're adding calendar now to this.
Where's the other time when you said we need to also insert email or?
The last paragraph.
The applicant selected for appointment shall be given written notice.
Oh.
Okay, shall be given email or text notice? Is that correct?
What I was trying to change was by mail. Mail was the word that I was focusing on. It's gonna be written notice, but in what format? Can it be electronic? And that's what I was trying to get away from, is saying,
Mail.
notified by mail. What
Yeah.
kind of mail? Electronic mail.
And then the days again.
There,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that paragraph, there are
Couple
two
times.
places we need to insert calendar from days.
Where it says, the Department of Human Resources or their representative, can we change that to designee?
At the top.
Representative?
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, because I'm not the one who's always sending out
Right.
the notice. So I just want to make sure that we're protected if someone else in the office sends that out.
Anything else on page 7? Over to page 8. I had to read this one a couple of times.
Yeah.
I know that when the police chief came.
We've already made this change, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
we
have.
did, we just had, I just
That's
had
what I
to
thought.
review
Moving
that.
on.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
That was,
because I
it was
circled that too.
shortly after we made the
Yeah.
last full approval of the revised rules.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
we
that's
do,
already there.
I did note in here that the probation period for a firefighter is 12 months.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
for a non-certified law officer, or would-be law officer, is 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
Statutory.
If you're certified, it's 12, it's still 12. Okay, so that 12-month probation period for a firefighter is statutory?
So it's allowed to be up to 24 for police and not for fire.
Okay, that's where I was confused then. I thought when we did it, it only applied to the police department when we made
Yeah.
the change, okay.
I think the only way we can do it.
Okay. Anything else y'all see on page 8? All right, let's go to 9. I don't have anything there.
I had in police officer 2, individuals who have satisfactorily served a probationary period of 1 year in an entry-level police officer 1 position, should that be with Maumelle or any police department?
We've got that coming. This is something that the police chief has brought up, but I'm just trying to go through all of her stuff, and then I'll get to his. And
Oh, he's already, okay.
I think he's already, well, let me make sure I've got his paperwork here.
Because Sarge just says at least 3 years within a police department instead of,
So
I
yeah,
think the police chief has got a proposal to change
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
He does. We'll come back to it.
Okay.
We'll come back to it. So, nothing else on page 8, 9. Notwithstanding what we're gonna do, look at, that the police chief has submitted. Okay, page 10, all I have is 2 changes to calendar
calendar.
days.
Mhm.
Don't have anything on 11, nothing on 12. 13 is just another change, calendar day, add calendar.
On 12, we got the one coming for the extra internal step for the police department.
I had something on 12 too.
On the notification. Candidate within 2 weeks, final ratings being sent, and applicant is permitted to inspect his or her examination in person at the Department of Human Resources. Isn't that where we put in the,
Yeah, we did put in a departmental step there
Yeah.
before they got to.
Oh, okay.
For departmental generated
Yeah.
test, not a national test.
And I think we already approved that.
We
Yeah.
did.
Haven't
We
changed
did.
it yet.
you just
Okay.
haven't changed it yet? Okay, that's what I
Sure
thought.
did.
I'm glad you pointed that out though, because I've forgotten that.
It's in the to-do bank there?
Yeah. Just do it all at one time.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be the easiest way to do it.
You good to move on?
Up in the first paragraph, it says the commission shall enter the names of successful applicants. Shouldn't that be HR? Second sentence.
Yeah.
I make the list and then you all certify the list. I think that's kind of a technicality.
Yeah, but we don't enter any names.
Mr. Mayor, I can't believe you're leaving this fun fest.
Quietly leave.
Called out.
Busted.
Y'all are doing a great job.
Do you want to say the commission or its designee?
I don't know where y'all are.
First paragraph on 12.
It's the
At
third
the
line.
top of the page.
Well,
Third
the problem
line.
is mine aren't numbered.
I'm not numbered.
Where's it at on here? Under
How'd you do
probation, what category? What's the name of the,
It's the third line on page 12, right above, it's the one above notification.
alright.
Third line from the top of my sheet.
Emotional list, I think, is the category.
I'm driving back.
Sure, I'm good seasick. But
Me too. I'm looking away.
No,
Here we
it's
go.
there, it's there.
there.
A little higher. It's above that, the third line from the top. Here, the commission, there, the third line from the top. The commission or its designee shall enter the names of successful applicants upon the appropriate list and order their final numerical ranking. The list shall then be certified by the commission.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Because we don't do the names.
I bet that's probably just straight out of statute, if I were guessing.
So we're doing it wrong.
No.
I got a
Well, we're not doing it that way.
question on the final print. Can the formatting be better?
No, it does not require that you actually do it. It says the creation and maintenance of current eligibles list for each rank of employment in which shall be entered. It doesn't say by whom. The names of the successful candidates in the order of their standing. And I think it goes on to talk about a certified.
But to answer your question, yes, absolutely.
Okay, 'cause there's, some of them, there'll be one sentence on another page, and
Yeah, no, we will definitely
Yeah.
fix the formatting, and, you know, we printed these to show the track changes.
Yeah.
So all of that will be
Yeah.
gone, so this will
Yeah,
take,
that-
Font gets
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
yeah, this formatting will go away, yeah.
yes, this formatting will
It
go
makes it
away.
easier to read when you're looking.
It's very tiny.
All right, are we ready to move?
Anything on 13?
Got another calendar
Another
day.
calendar, it's all,
Insertion of calendar. Nobody's got a problem with that. All right. 14, rejection of applicants. Madam HR Director, I will let you comment on your comments.
So I separated, because E and F were drawn together. And it read something of the nature, the applicant, has been convicted of a felony and has exhibited, so I just, changed those to read as two different and exclusive changes. And then on I, the applicant has directly or indirectly obtained information regarding examinations to which, as an applicant, he/she was not entitled.
In other words, a cheat.
I'm trying to even, it's so small I can't even read my own change.
Where is it?
Read that again, which one is it?
well, that's, the
Letter?
print's kinda
I-
light too.
Yeah.
Which, D, E, which one is it?
This,
It's bigger than yours.
F?
Who fails a job background
G.
investigation,
I.
which may
I,
include but
thank
not
you.
limited, oh, okay. I think that somehow got moved. My comment for that actually goes up to F. And it would read something like this. An applicant who fails a job background investigation, which may include but is not limited to work history, previous employer inquiries, character references, credit report, polygraph examination. And that would be part of a reason for rejection of a candidate.
Have we, the polygraph examination, do other departments have that? Or what are we asking them on the polygraph exam?
We currently do not utilize the polygraph exam. Some agencies do, it's a hit and a miss.
Let's not do that. Just polygraph examinations and employment in general are not looked upon favorably, and, I don't see anything in the statute that permits that as a criteria.
I agree.
So if we're not using it, for
Yeah.
sure, let's get rid of that. And at what point, I mean, I guess I have some concerns on credit report too. I would rather see that be something more concrete, because where do you, like, at what credit rating would you say it's not appropriate for them to be a police officer?
I don't see us using the credit rating, it's more of indebtedness.
Yeah.
Bankruptcy, and the thought process behind that
Goes to the
is
credit
if you are taking in evidence, what's the likelihood that you might not put all of that evidence in the evidence locker, and you might sell it because you know it has a street value of $5,000? It's not uncommon, but I'm just throwing them out here. You guys,
And I get that, but I'm also struggling with somebody who has $150,000 in student loan debt, as opposed, you know,
As long as they're paying it, their credit rating's good.
well, that's true. Yeah, but that, I mean.
And
that is
we're not looking at the
evidence.
number, we're looking at the payments, the history, you
Which
know,
impacts
are
the
they,
number,
are they
yeah.
defaulting on loans? Do they have multiple judgments against them? All the things that show up in a credit report, we're not actually looking at the number. That doesn't play into it.
and there's something in CLUST for that too, correct?
I believe so, yes, ma'am. I do.
I just don't know if I would phrase it that way and put it here. It's not not that it couldn't come into play. I mean, obviously, if they can't get certified through Quest, then it's not an issue, but, I have qualms about credit report being a criteria phrased that way. I think there could be some disparate impact there.
What's an excessive use of intoxicating liquor? It doesn't,
You asking for a friend?
got the cousin of a friend who wants to know. And non-prescribed, as long as they're prescribed narcotics, I think Elvis would differ on this, because all his was prescribed, but, I mean, any addiction to prescription or non-prescribed, wouldn't that be
Well,
an issue?
we have to be careful, because
Yeah.
also, you know, if they can still perform the essential functions of their job with or without a reasonable accommodation, if they take something that helps them sleep that we wouldn't want them to take when they're on duty, that's probably still okay, you know, or if they take something,
Like a shot of whiskey?
well,
I mean, I think it's very important
You
to.
know, policemen and firemen would never.
No.
I might have been
I mean-
considering medical marijuana if you didn't have a card when I wrote this. I don't know.
I think any impairment, anything that results in an impairment of your duties or job capabilities needs to be addressed. I don't care if you have a card or not. It's legal to drink at 21, yet you still can't do that on the job.
right.
I mean,
whether you
how
have
do
a
you
card
know
or
an
not.
applicant is addicted or uses narcotics excessively? I mean, how do you know that?
We know.
You'd be surprised at what people would admit during an interview.
If your evidence locker is empty.
Yeah. And also goes to speak to looking at, we've had applicants in the past that you look at the criminal history, and they'll have multiple public intoxicants, or they'll have multiple encounters with law enforcement while they may not have been arrested, but you can see, and what you see is a pattern develop. This is written, I think, from a statute or from Quest. I don't specifically know how that's written, but this is some of the things that we come across as when I was doing background investigations, and as well as the new background investigators. People will tell you a lot more than what you expect them to. And if you think ours are bad, I've spoken to the polygraph examiners with the FBI, and their stories are out there, what people have admitted right before going into a polygraph. Things that should never be admitted.
I had just a little bit of qualms with C, the applicant is physically unfit. Unfit, I mean, is unable a better word, or is unfit?
So we have
the
fitness
definition?
testing, they go through fitness
Yeah.
procedures and physical fitness, exam, y'all have physical exams for both departments, right? So they have to have those, have to pass those, like their vision has to be acceptable, you know, corrected or whatever, I mean, all those types of things.
Well, the applicant fails to meet the minimum required, you know,
I mean,
physical
that sounds a
ability.
little better,
That
but
sounds better than they're
unfit is a
unfit, I
little
agree.
disturbing.
I think is it not a term of art, like for, an exam for police or fire? Like either you're fit for, like, it's like
Fit for duty.
like a military type.
Fit for duty.
Yeah, it's not like physically unfit as being overweight or obese. It's being unfit
It says
to
physically unfit.
perform.
But you look at
Says
some of the
physically.
advertisements in the paper, and they qualify that you must be able to stand for a certain period of time, must be able to run at a certain distance, and
There's visual acuity,
Yeah.
there's a ton, and if we followed, you know, the National what is it, NFPA, National Fire
Yeah.
Protection Association?
yeah.
They're strict. It's just like you can, I mean, your visual acuity has to be no more or less than 20/30 in one eye, and the other one can only be 20 something else. I mean,
Yeah.
these are just fitness tests. And again, we've got CLEST for the police department that we've got to follow, and they have the same.
So the applicant fails to meet the minimal physical requirements
Yeah,
to
they-
perform the job
They
effectively.
have fitness tests.
Yeah,
They have,
and these are occupations that you
physical exams.
for the handicap, you can't be wheelchair bound, you can't walk with a crutch or a cane, and so don't apply.
I mean, I like that better, the applicant fails to meet minimum physical requirements for the position.
Semantics, we can change it
We
how,
can
how,
change it.
It's fine. I give in.
no, I like
Words
it.
matter.
No.
Fails to
be
meet,
specific.
HR is making notes on that now.
yeah, no.
In North Little Rock, we did adopt NFPA 1610, and so those strict requirements are the commission that did adopt it, yes. And
1610 or 1582, I'm sorry.
off the top of my head, there's so many NFPA numbers. I owe you that to get back to the exact number, but we'd always have to pull out the book on somebody when they go for their physical and they come back, and eyesight was a big one that knocked
Yeah.
people out, for sure.
Yeah.
Diabetes and some of the other things.
I think it's 1582, but
I think that
either way,
might be right.
it's out there.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be the applicant fails to meet the physical requirements of either the fitness test or physical examination?
It'd probably be both, wouldn't it?
We might even throw in the physical requirements by CLEST and NFPA. I mean, that would be perfectly clear.
That would be very
That
clear.
would be
Yeah.
very clear.
CLEST or NFPA?
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't put the number in, because about every 5
Right,
years,
it'll
Yeah.
change.
they add something and the numbers change.
Yeah, by CLEST standards.
Is there anything else under chapter 3? Not talking about chapter 4, anything in chapter 3 that we haven't talked about?
G, what's a material fact? I know it's anything that might impact your employment. Do we need a false statement of material fact? I think you might have.
We have that in there because we have supplemental questions as part of the application, and one of them would read, like, I have not been convicted of a domestic violence, a felony in domestic violence, and if they were to fail to answer that incorrectly, that would be a material fact.
Okay.
But I think when you're thinking of if anything would not be a material fact, if you left out a job you had for 2 weeks when you were 16 because you just forgot about it, and it was, wiping down tables at David's Burgers, I don't know that we would want to disqualify somebody.
I'll just make sure.
So it's just up to interpretation. Gotcha.
Again, it allows us to write robust supplemental questions that we use for screening, and were we to have an applicant who answered that question incorrectly, then it would make our elimination process a little more simple. We really do want to make it as clear-cut as we possibly can. So no felony convictions, no domestics.
Convictions, misdemeanor or felony, because then they can't carry a firearm, so that's.
I mean, if you said on your application that you have a valid Arkansas driver's license and you don't, that would be a material statement. If you answered, yes, I have that, and you don't in fact have it. I had a couple more on page 14. And it was more for clarification, and I'm gonna lean on the chiefs for this.
Still in chapter 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that was it for chapter 3, I
All
apologize.
right, before we move on to chapter 4, take that in. Commissioner Wells, would you, when it reaches you, would you give copies to the chiefs too?
Sure. Gimme.
Okay, under chapter 3, rejection of applicants, we had a situation, a couple of months ago? Where I was a little fearful that there was something missing in these regulations. So my proposal is and we can word this any way you want. A police or fire chief, after otherwise successful entry testing by an individual, but before hiring for a position, may obtain information that raises concerns about the appropriateness of hiring an individual. In that event, a chief shall have the right to bring those concerns before the commission to appeal an individual's inclusion on the entry list. A majority vote by the commission shall determine the outcome of that appeal.
What would be an example of that, those concerns?
It could be anything, and if they brought it to us and we approved it, I don't think we would approve just any old thing. So it still keeps the control of it in our hands. A chief is not gonna be able to get rid of somebody just because, a reason that we don't find sufficient.
Say,
You're saying the background check did not bring out this instance that was later discovered, and so that gives you a way
Yes.
to, I'm okay with that.
And in this particular cases we just had, part of that might have been a guy doing a job he wasn't as familiar with, which I totally understand. But he did discover a couple of things about a couple of applicants that raised doubts in his mind about the wisdom of it. So it's pretty broad, I understand that, and it puts it on us.
And I think it's not that different from what's already here, it's just more specifically spelled out. I mean, because when you look at selection, it talks about, this is back on page 12, if the list provides the respective chief is equally exhaustive without an appointment being made, then prior to the transmission of a new list of the next 3 eligible applicants, the HR director will verify to the commission that written reasons for rejection of previous applicants have been received. It's kind of a similar process anyway. And this procedure should be repeated until a selected applicant accepts appointment. So it's basically, you come back to the commission if you didn't like any of the other ones that are on the list.
Yeah, I think it belongs on chapter 3, rejection of applicants. This amendment.
Yeah, it's better to spell it out.
I think that's the place for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah,
If y'all want to agree with it, we should add it. It's up to
No,
y'all.
I think so.
Okay. So, did you say you wanted to add it at the beginning of chapter 3, like in the opening paragraph, or at the end?
I would put it at the end.
Yeah.
yeah. Good
Madam
spot.
HR Director, I have something here in chapter 4 you might want to talk about. Like you changed.
Yeah, I was looking for some clarification on temporary appointments, the way the current rules read. And toward the end of the paragraph where it reads, well, let me just read the whole one.
Where are we, back on page 4?
14,
Chapter 4.
Sorry.
chapter 4,
Temporary assignments.
paragraph 1.
Okay.
And we're talking about making temporary appointments. In cases where the chief determines that an emergency exists, the respective chief of police or chief of fire may make a temporary appointment without examination, including a change in pay, rank, or position for up to 60 days without bringing the appointment before the Civil Service Commission, provided that, this is a long sentence, provided that any increase in pay does not go beyond the appointed employee's existing pay grade. That's how it reads now. And I was proposing for it to say, The pay grade does not go beyond the limits fixed for the grade of the temporary promotion. So again, it was just a clarification.
Yeah.
So while you're in a temporary appointment, you are at a higher pay rate,
Right.
yeah, as it should be, okay.
And then, if any temporary appointment, regardless of duration, involves an increase in pay beyond the limits of the pay grade of the temporary promotion, the temporary promotion shall require the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission prior to any pay increase.
Beyond the limits of the pay grade, okay.
Do you have that, is that included in this?
Well, how would
Is
that
there
It
be
may
something-
not be, those might be some additional,
How could you get pay above
changes that I-
where your
I'm sorry,
temporary
because I was
promotion
looking
is?
at the
I don't know.
statute, at their
There it is.
language on
Doesn't make any
what's allowed
sense.
for temporary employees.
Not you. I'll read it.
If any temporary appointment, regardless of duration, involves an increase in any pay beyond the limits of the pay grade of the temporary promotion, how the heck would that happen?
How would that happen?
I think we're making sure that it doesn't.
No.
Okay, fair enough.
Kinda like water's wet and sky's blue, I don't see how that would, I get the temporary promotion, but how would you increase their pay beyond that? I don't know why you'd increase their pay.
I think the interpretation of the way it's currently read is that it can't go beyond the limit of their current grade,
Which I would agree with.
and we're saying that it would not go beyond the limits of the grade that they're being promoted to.
It's a temporary appointment
It's a temporary appointment.
as opposed to promotion.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna get the benefit of the additional duties, experience, et cetera.
But in some instances where we had, and I'm trying to think of, it was a fire lieutenant to captain, and the way this read, Scott and I interpreted it, that we couldn't give him a pay increase where we wanted to give him because it was outside of the pay grade of the lieutenant to serve as a captain. So we were talking about amending the verbiage to say that we could go up one grade. Because the way we were interpreting it, and you guys correct me if we were not interpreting it to the spirit of the rule, was that we couldn't give him a pay increase because he was already maxed out. So we want to say we want,
In the grade he was
in the grade he's currently in. So I wanted to extend it to the next pay grade up, so that that person would be eligible for a temporary pay increase. So this is gonna happen when we've got someone, a seasoned apparatus engineer, fire lieutenant, who, sorry, that Little Rock came out in me for just a second.
That term has changed through the years.
Many years in that position, so he's almost maxed out at his grade. So chiefs?
In the past, at least at the police department, if you are taking on the responsibilities of a captain for an extended period of time, in excess of probably 60 days, I think was the magic number. At that point, at day 61, or if you know it's gonna be over 60, then you were paid at the rate of the rank that you were standing in for. That's the way we've always handled it. Anything less than 60 days, you stayed at your current rank and pay. And that's why I know back when Chief Williams, my predecessor, was in Iraq for a year, we rotated each of the captains on a 2-month rotation, and that kept us at our pay grade while still giving us the experience of the next pay grade up. And however, Hansard, at the time, Captain Hansard, sat in as interim chief, and therefore he drew chief salary and benefits at that time. So that's the way it's played out in the real world scenario that I've seen.
There's a lot of statutory language on temporary appointments too, so it's
I bet.
we need to, it's a fine
And we do
line.
have 2 temporary appointments right now. One for captain for military leave and one up to lieutenant to replace the captain. And one thing I was extremely excited about coming to Maumelle about is we don't pay differential pay. because that made us almost go bankrupt in North Little Rock. And so when folks do move up, as it sits right now, they don't get that differential pay. So if it's longer than 60 days, I'm glad to see that we do reward them for that. Because even right now, if a captain moves up to a battalion chief for 1 day, there is no pay incentive. So 60 days, I think they definitely deserve it, for sure, for that.
So anything beyond 60 days should be approved by the commission, right?
It has to be
It has to be
anyway.
approved by the commission. I was just making sure we're all doing that.
Yeah.
No, we're not undoing that.
So what the increase in salary language in the statute is an increase in salary beyond the limits fixed for the grade by the rules of the commission may be allowed while an employee is working outside of his or her grade while temporarily promoted to fill a vacancy under this subdivision B8. And it talks about the 60 days for certain, some appointments can be made for less than 60 days for certain reasons. Anything 60 days or above having to be approved. So I guess if it's above 60 days, that's allowed in the statute.
Is that what you were shooting for?
I am shooting for whatever my chiefs want. That's my goal.
Yeah.
I think
All allows.
the law allows.
That the law allows.
I think
Let me
what-
back up. Here's who I want to make happy. My chiefs and my city attorney.
So it wasn't working the way it was, it needs to be changed. Are you happy with the way it was working?
I think the clarification is needed there for,
Okay.
I know it's worked for us in the past, but there's always going to be probably questions
Yeah.
with each one. We don't happen to do this quite as often as probably fire does.
Fire does it more, yeah.
Yeah, they do, I think.
They get the system.
But it sounds like to me, what I've heard both of y'all say, what you would like to do is if it's less than 60 days, there's no change in pay. If it's above 60 days, they move to the higher
Yes, sir.
position
Yes, sir.
for pay.
I am definitely good with that.
Yes.
Like he said, I think they deserve it. If you're sitting there for 2
Oh,
months,
yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
getting the headaches and
Is-
everything else.
Yeah.
Is that the way it's being done now?
Yes, sir. At least on our side of the house.
It is now, yes.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Don't sound like it's broke.
All right, don't fix it.
We might have reached the end of the HR suggestions.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry, I'm still looking at these changes on page 14. So, here, I'm reading the whole paragraph together. In cases where the chief determines that an emergency exists, the respective chief of police or fire may make a temporary appointment without examination, including a change in pay, rank, or position for up to 60 days, without bringing the appointment before the Civil Service Commission, provided
No.
that any increase in pay does not go beyond the limits fixed for the grade of the temporary promotion. I thought what we were just saying is they don't go up for the promotion if it's less than 60 days.
Right.
That's what we're
It says
trying to do.
may,
That's what we're trying to do.
If they
but
see
they
2-1,
haven't
they
been
should
doing
go
it.
up.
I don't
I see what you're
think
saying.
the statute says it's
Yeah.
you're supposed to though.
Yeah.
I think the statute says an increase in salary beyond the limits fixed for the grade by the rules of the commission may be allowed while an employee is working outside of his or her grade while temporarily promoted under this subdivision.
So you could pay them in the next grade, you just can't exceed that grade, correct? Is that the way it's translated? Because you're gonna take them,
Isn't that true for everybody though? Whether they're promoted or not, you can't exceed the limit of whatever grade you're in, so I'm
One would
not sure
think.
what that's for.
And then, then the next paragraph says if any temporary appointment, regardless of duration, involves an increase in pay beyond the limits of the grade pay of the temporary promotion, which I don't think it ever would. The temporary appointment shall require the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission prior to an increase in pay.
So if I'm a lieutenant, I'm
So that makes
getting promoted for 50 days, it says I can get my pay increased.
I think what has happened here is in previous years, the pay scale wasn't quite as separate as it is currently. In previous pay scales, you would have a lieutenant overlapping a captain or or a sergeant overlapping a lieutenant. I think that may be where this language is coming from.
Oh, the pay scales overlap?
Somewhat, and here in the last several years, that has been fixed and corrected, so that there is a gap. So a top-down lieutenant won't make more than a junior captain.
So do you want to, I mean, if you're only appointing somebody for 2 weeks, do you want to pay them at the rate of the promotion? Or only 60 days?
Only at 60 days.
Okay, well, that's not what this says.
No, it says you can do it right then.
Yes.
It says you may.
Yeah.
They're
If we could
deciding
just clean it up so that it's there and it's in the rules that, hey, 60 days or less, we do not pay you. That way you're getting the experience, you're getting that as your bonus.
Right.
And then anything over 60 days, now you are entitled to the pay.
Madam City Attorney, can I just ask you to take a look at those 2 paragraphs?
Sorry.
And rework them
Sometimes I take over.
with those thoughts.
Yeah, I think they
Well,
made it
I just
something
want to
simple,
make sure that
complicated.
we're getting the intent right, because what I hear y'all saying is, we don't want to bump it unless they're 60 days.
Right.
And then,
Correct.
so I think we need to leave that first paragraph the way it is.
Okay.
Before the Civil Service Commission provided that any increase in pay does not go beyond the appointed employee's existing pay grade. Yes, I mean, that's what it says right now.
So you're
I
saying you
think-
can bump it? So if I'm at an entry-level lieutenant and I'm doing a temporary job as a captain, I can still get a bump
That's
within the
the way I
Not
lieutenant?
in my pay grade, but in my pay grade, may.
As long as it's within the pay grade you're currently in.
Lieutenant's pay.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
But I don't think you
Okay.
want to bump them all the way up, you know, from
Right.
new lieutenant to
To
captain
captain
pay
pay,
if
right.
they're doing it for a week and a
Okay.
half, you know, while
Right.
somebody's
Right.
on a vacation or whatever.
And I think almost, at least on the police side, because when it comes to dollars and cents, they watch and track every.
Oh, yeah.
Do they ever?
And if they know you can do it, they're gonna be on
They're
you
gonna ask.
to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. If I could take that out of my wheelhouse and go, look, the commission says I can't do that.
Yeah.
No offense, but
We're useful sometimes.
if I can lay it at y'all's feet instead of mine, it makes for a happy camper.
And you can go,
and so I'm kind of struggling with why we need the second change too, because that's, if any temporary appointment, regardless of duration, involves an increase in pay beyond the limits of the pay grade of the temporary promotion, the temporary appointment shall require the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission prior to the increase in pay.
You're kind of saying
I
2
don't,
different things
yeah,
there,
I
aren't
don't I think it needs to stay in the pay grade, because I think the commission has to, if we're gonna say it's only for 60 days, the commission has to approve it if it's more than 60 days anyway.
you? Right.
So I think it needs to stay the way it is.
says regardless of duration though.
So I think, when Scott was deployed for 14 months, they kept rotating captains into his spot. And,
Any temporary.
but we've never talked about the pay they get.
Oh, his existing pay grade. Yeah, I think.
So what it says, as it is if they're going to be increased beyond their pay grade, the commission just has to approve it, which is fine, because when you come in to say, I need to do a 90-day appointment because somebody's going on military leave, you can say, and I would like a bump in pay grade to the appropriate grade for the temporary position, right? I mean, that shouldn't be a
But I
problem.
think the way that it currently reads, it doesn't allow us to bump up to that pay grade, the way it currently reads. It says,
You can, you just have to have the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission.
to me, it reads that the appointment has to be made by the Civil Service Commission, provided that any increase in pay does not go beyond the appointed employee's existing pay grade.
Right. If any temporary appointment regardless of duration involves an increase in pay beyond the appointed employee's existing pay grade, the temporary appointment shall require the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission. So just, if you're gonna bump them up, which they've said they wanna do it 60 days, then you're gonna have to have approval of the commission. You can
Yeah.
still do it,
Mhm.
the commission just has to approve it at the same time they're approving your appointment.
Okay, just as long as we know that if it's beyond 60 days, we know that we can bump up to the next pay grade.
Yes, yes.
So, because when you're reading from the top down, you know, we kind of tend to say, well, it said in this, is one thing, this is another, so if we can just, then
Confusing.
change the second paragraph and not the first.
And that's why we need translators from lawyer to lay people.
Exactly.
Mm.
Pay grade. Temporary appointment shall require consideration of civil service commission prior to any increase in pay.
I think, shouldn't you take out regardless of duration? Because we've addressed the duration in the first paragraph. And we just said you're not gonna get that bump beyond your current pay grade.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary,
I
really.
don't think it's necessary.
Then it would just say, if any temporary appointment involves an increase in pay beyond the appointed employee's existing pay grade, the temporary appointment should require the consideration and approval of the Civil Service Commission prior to any increase in pay above existing pay grade, is really what it should say.
So really, if it's inside 60 days or less than 60 days, we might not even know about it.
No, they could bump him to the limit of the lieutenant pay.
But it's not unusual, particularly in the fire department, for a chief to come before us and rather than making a series of temporary appointments, going ahead and saying, hey, so-and-so's gonna be back.
I'm gonna
Such and
just
such.
look at these paragraphs and see if
I
there's
wish
some
you
ways
would.
to make them just
Make 'em
clear,
a little
Yeah.
Yep.
plainer.
easy to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agreed.
That would be great.
that's what I was gonna suggest you do
And
about
as long as we
20
kinda
minutes
know what
ago.
page we're on, like, you know, we want it to stay the same if it's less than 60 days, we can work on it.
Yeah.
Alright.
Less than 60 days, the chief can make the appointment without adjusting salary.
Yeah.
Over 60 days,
Make that clear.
the chief has to come before the commission to request the temporary appointment and pay increase, something simple, because as simple as it can get for my folks, so they don't misconstrue it, because you know, they read these more than we do.
Yes, they do,
They find each loophole.
which is why we're trying to be as specific as possible. But in
My
this
point.
paragraph, it says, so don't you think they
What we
meant
need is
this?
somebody who likes to find the loopholes from each department, have them actually sit here.
Oh, yeah.
Don't have anything else from HR.
I have one
Corrects
more.
the address.
I did correct the address.
Correct the address.
I corrected the address on one of those pages.
What did,
Oh, yeah, the very last one.
But also on page 22, I wanted to make our reappointment or reinstatement rules and regs just a little bit more robust, simply because we had a situation where we did reinstate an employee,
Yeah.
and it says that some pay, scale, and benefits are not in accordance with these policies, to refer back to city policy, but we don't have any of those either. So I was hoping we could just write in some in generals. And I wish you could see my requested changes.
Yeah, you did these, that was not on the original that you sent out.
Okay.
I
I
don't
think it might have come
Mine
up
looks like this, is that not how it's supposed to look?
after page 22.
Oh, I'm on page 23, sorry. But it's reappointment and reinstatement.
Uh-huh.
Now, this doesn't get into what Chief Pickard was
Mine's 23
bringing
too.
up, does it?
23 also.
Because he had, let me see where that goes.
And if you guys want to table the reinstatement part for next time, then I can send out
Was that
My-
chapter 6, other rules,
proposed changes,
reappointment or reinstatement?
reappointment and reinstatement.
Chief Pickard has a proposal for that we just haven't gotten to yet. I'm trying to
Okay.
get through all yours first.
I mean, if you guys want to tackle it, that's fine, but it's 7:20 and,
Let's finish up.
Mine shows up pretty well, unless there's more there than what I'm seeing.
HR and mine may be the same.
I put a couple of others in there,
Oh, you did?
but nothing substantial, okay. So a non-probationary employee with a good record who has resigned or who has been approved for leave of absence may be reinstated without qualifying in a competitive examination a year of the date of resignation or within leave. And so what we were saying is we were gonna.
Within a year? It should be within a year, right?
Within a year, but we're going to actually change that because CLEST.
Okay.
This is one that may end up having to be separated between police and fire.
Okay.
And I only say that because we have a CLEST requirement that I put in there. Fire won't have that, so that might be one of those that it's the same but separate. We have different requirements. He can probably bring one in a year later. I won't be able to, depending on.
Oh, I see the comment now. Yeah, when the resignation or leave is no more than 6 months from the date of separation from the police department and no more than 1 year from fire.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, my other one was just, clearing this up. In section C, it says refer to C, but you're in C, but I think it meant refer back to B. And then, and for the police department, the employee has successfully completed a new background investigation, an oral interview with the chief or designated representative. We can reword however you want to do that, Missy. The designee.
I would say or his designee.
Or their designee.
Or, yeah, their designee.
And passed a physical examination, and again, those are CLEST requirements for PD. On D, placement on the pay scale and benefits from prior service will be in accordance with established city policies and carrier requirements. Pay and benefit retention are not provided for in the civil service rule, so I just wanted to put some bare minimums in here. And then if Chief Pickard has anything to add to that point, let's see, oh, I have some more on 23. A reinstated or reappointed employee is eligible to compete for promotion based on the original date of hire, provided the employee was reinstated, reappointed within 6 months of the original separation. When the separation date exceeds 6 months, the eligibility to compete will be based on the reinstatement date, not the original date of hire.
That's for police and fire, you're gonna do 6 months?
We just said we might have to parse that out a little bit. I haven't checked,
I don't know what he wants.
with,
Probably like to talk to you about it.
for the police department, all reinstatement reappointments are subject to and may change according to both CLEST and Arkansas state rules and regulations. Stick a fork in me, I'm done.
I think that gets us on the third point that, the police chief was making, but backing up to chapter 2. Where that is.
Page 9.
Okay. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but I think his major point there is for lieutenant and captain that we change, that we specify that they have to be in a lower rank for X number of years in the Maumelle Police Department rather than within a police department.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I believe I left it open on police officer testing for sergeant. And
Yeah, you said let's leave a department if you're testing for sergeant and add or change to Maumelle Police Department if you're testing for lieutenant or captain.
Yes, sir.
So we're leaving police officer 2 and sergeant alone.
Yes, ma'am.
And his request was to change for lieutenant and captain, change within a police department to the Maumelle Police Department, which I can understand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
And I think his third point, I think y'all already covered it.
Chief Picker, did you have anything else?
You said, can we add a section to H or wherever it needs to go in the reappointment section to list about eligibility to compete for promotion for those who were reinstated? I think.
We did.
That was
y'all
covered.
just
Yeah.
addressed
Sounds
that.
like we covered it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Chief Buford, when I talked to you the other day, I told you we were about to start down this rocky road. I promise you all of our meetings are not this long, or tedious. But I told you at the time, I know you have 10,000 things on your mind, and you may find some things as you look at these regs that you want us to consider changing. I don't know that you've got any now,
But they,
you can always bring them back, is my point.
I really haven't had the chance to sit down with Doreen, and I'm trying to wrap my head around, it is completely different of what I'm used to. This, North Little Rock Civil Service is this thick, and it's just different, which is not bad. It's just I need to make sure I understand that, and particularly with the hiring process, it's a little different. And so before I brought anything, I wanted to educate myself a little bit more,
Yeah.
if that's all right. I want to understand things better, and I don't fully understand everything that Noreen does, so
Well, I can
she can
promise you
educate
Chief
me.
Eaton wanted no part of it.
I do want to, I want to be intelligent when I come to you,
I
not just.
understand, and
Yes, sir.
this is the process, we still have to change it and advertise it. I mean, we're nowhere near voting
Yeah, we're
to change any of this tonight.
probably 2 to 3 months out.
It could be, I'm just
Hopefully we'll have a draft in a month. and
you've
then-
probably got a little time.
Yeah.
Okay,
I would like to get it wrapped up this fall, but this fall is not a hard day, so.
yes, sir. I just don't want to throw anything out that I don't intelligently
I totally
understand.
understand.
I need the expert, and you were right, it is 1582.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional comments? Well, I guess we're gonna do we have to make a motion to request?
A draft, yes,
Oh,
as
okay.
the rules as discussed.
I would make a motion that we request the city attorney to draft the rules that we have discussed tonight.
Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion carries. All right. Any other additional comments, or is everybody just ready to get out of here? All right. I'll
Yeah.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I bet there won't be.
Mm.
All in favor, say yes. Yes. Any
Yes.
opposed, no. We're adjourned.
Thank you all so very much.
Hey, y'all,
Yeah.
this was not near